The moving truck blocking the entire cul-de-sac at 7 in the morning was not how Violet Walsh wanted to start her Saturday, especially since she had planned to sleep until at least 9 after working double shifts all week at the botanical garden nursery. She stood at her kitchen window in her pajamas, coffee mug in hand, watching an endless stream of expensive furniture being carried into the house next door. The house had been empty for months after old Mrs. Patterson passed away, and Violet had gotten used to the quiet. Now someone with clearly too much money and too little consideration for their neighbors was moving in. The movers handled everything with white gloves, literally. She watched them carefully maneuver what looked like a genuine leather sofa, followed by abstract art pieces that probably cost more than her annual salary. Violet sighed and turned away from the window. She had errands to run anyway, and sitting here being annoyed about her new neighbor would not help anything. By the time she returned home 3 hours later, arms full of groceries, the moving truck was gone, but a sleek black Mercedes sat in the driveway next door. Violet noticed a tall figure standing in the front yard, hands on hips, surveying the property. She caught a glimpse of dark hair and broad shoulders before she hurried inside, not wanting to make awkward first-time neighbor small talk while carrying a bag of frozen vegetables that was already starting to thaw. The knock on her door came 2 hours later, just as she was settling onto her couch with a book. Violet considered pretending she was not home, but her car was clearly in the driveway. She set down her novel and opened the door to find her new neighbor standing on her porch. He was younger than she expected, probably early 30s, with dark hair that looked like he had been running his hands through it all day, and striking green eyes that seemed to actually see her rather than just look at her. He wore a simple gray t-shirt and jeans, both of which fit him well enough that Violet had to remind herself not to stare. "Hi," he said, offering a genuinely apologetic smile. "I am Lucas Everett, your new neighbor. I wanted to apologize for the chaos this morning." The moving company said they would be here at 9, but apparently 7 was close enough for them. Violet felt her irritation deflate slightly. At least he was aware he had disrupted the morning. "Violet Walsh," she said, shaking his offered hand. His grip was firm and warm. "And it is okay. I needed to get up anyway." "Still, not the best first impression," Lucas said. He held up a bag she had not noticed he was carrying. "I brought peace offering bagels from that place downtown. The woman at the shop said they are the best in the city, so I am hoping she was not just being nice to the new guy." Despite herself, Violet smiled. "Rosie's Bakery, those are definitely the best bagels. You did not have to do that." "I wanted to," Lucas said, and there was something earnest in his voice that made Violet step back and gesture for him to come in. She was not usually the type to invite strangers into her home, but something about Lucas felt safe. Her modest living room probably looked tiny compared to whatever he had going on next door, but Lucas did not seem to notice or care. He set the bag of bagels on her coffee table and looked around with what seemed like genuine interest. "This is nice," he said, nodding toward the plants she had everywhere. Violet had a habit of bringing home the ones that were not selling well at the nursery, nursing them back to health. "You have a good touch with greenery." "I work at Greenleaf Botanical Nursery," Violet explained, sitting back down on her couch and gesturing for Lucas to take the armchair. "So I get a discount on the rescues." "Rescues?" Lucas asked, settling into the chair and leaning forward with actual curiosity. "Plants that are not doing well." "Most people do not want to buy something that looks half dead, even if it just needs some attention and the right care," Violet said, warming to the subject. "Like that fiddle-leaf fig by the window." Someone overwatered it terribly, but once I repotted it and put it in the right light, it bounced back. Lucas looked at the plant in question with new appreciation. That is really cool. I cannot keep anything alive. I kill cacti. Violet laughed. That actually takes effort. Cacti basically thrive on neglect. Well, I am very talented, Lucas said with a self-deprecating grin that made Violet feel something flutter in her chest. She pushed the feeling away. He had been her neighbor for all of 3 hours. They ended up talking for over an hour, working their way through the bagels while conversation flowed easily. Lucas told her he had just moved to the city for work, that he had been living in New York but wanted a change of pace. He was careful not to mention what he did. Violet noticed just that he worked in business. She did not push. Everyone was entitled to their privacy. She told him about her job at the nursery, about how she had studied horticulture in college with dreams of opening her own landscape design business someday, though that dream seemed further away with each passing year of just trying to pay bills. Lucas listened like he actually cared about what she was saying, asking questions that showed he was paying attention. When he finally left, promising not to make any more early morning disruptions, Violet found herself standing at her door longer than necessary, watching him walk back to his house. She shook her head at herself. New neighbor. That was all. Just a friendly new neighbor who happened to be attractive and easy to talk to. The next few weeks fell into an unexpected pattern. Lucas seemed to be home a lot, though Violet would see him on his phone constantly or working on his laptop on his back patio. He would wave when he saw her, often coming over to chat when she was tending to her small front garden after work. "You make that look easy," he commented one evening, watching as she deadheaded her roses. "It is easy once you know what you are doing," Violet said, sitting back on her heels and looking up at him. The evening sun lit him from behind, and she had to shield her eyes. "I could teach you if you want. Your front beds could use some work." Lucas looked at the somewhat neglected garden areas around his house and grimaced. "The realtor assured me they were low maintenance." "Low maintenance still requires some maintenance," Violet said, standing up and brushing dirt from her knees. "Come on, I will show you the basics." She ended up spending an hour in his yard, showing him how to pull weeds properly, explaining which plants needed more water and which needed less. Lucas proved to be a surprisingly attentive student, asking questions and actually seeming to absorb the information. At one point, he lost his balance while reaching for a stubborn weed and caught himself on her shoulder, his hand lingering just a moment longer than necessary. Violet felt heat rush to her face that had nothing to do with the warm evening. "Sorry," he said, but his eyes held hers for a beat too long to be casual. "It is okay," Violet managed, trying to ignore how aware she suddenly was of how close they were standing. The gardening lessons became a regular thing. Twice a week, Violet would come over after work and they would spend an hour or so working in his yard. Lucas was getting better at it, she had to admit, though she suspected he sometimes pretended to need more help than he actually did. She did not mind. They started having dinner together occasionally too. Sometimes Lucas would order from nice restaurants downtown, food that Violet never would have splurged on herself, but that he seemed to think was casual. Other times she would cook, and Lucas would show up with wine that probably cost more than her grocery budget, but that he always passed off as something he just had lying around. "You are a really good cook," he said one night, helping her clear dishes from her small dining table after she had made pasta from scratch. "My mom taught me," Violet said, smiling at the memory. "She said anyone who could not feed themselves properly was not really an adult." "My mom said the same thing, but I apparently was not listening," Lucas said, following her into the kitchen with the plates. "I live on takeout and whatever my assistant orders for me at the office." It was the first real mention he had made of having an office, and Violet glanced at him curiously. "You never really talk about your work." Lucas was quiet for a moment, loading dishes into her dishwasher with careful attention. "It is not that interesting. Business consulting, helping companies restructure, that kind of thing. Numbers and spreadsheets mostly." Violet accepted the vague answer, even though something in his tone suggested there was more to it. Everyone was entitled to separate work from their personal life. "Well, at least you are learning to keep a garden alive," she said lightly, changing the subject. "That is an improvement." Lucas looked up and grinned. "I have a good teacher." The flutter in Violet's chest was becoming familiar and increasingly hard to ignore. She was developing feelings for Lucas. She could admit that to herself. But she had no idea if he felt the same way or if he just saw her as a friendly neighbor. He had never made a move beyond that almost moment in his garden. Never asked her on what could definitively be called a date, rather than just neighbors hanging out. She was considering just asking him directly, being brave for once in her life, when her coworker Maria threw everything into sharp relief. "So when are you going to tell me more about this hot neighbor?" Maria asked during their lunch break at the nursery, giving Violet an exaggerated, curious look. "There is nothing to tell," Violet said, focusing very hard on her sandwich. "We are friends. He is my neighbor." "Friends who have dinner together 3 times a week and spend all their free time together," Maria said knowingly. "Violet, honey, that man is into you. Why have you not made a move?" "Because what if he is not?" Violet said, finally voicing her fear. "What if I completely misread things and make it awkward? He lives next door. I cannot avoid him if things go badly." Maria rolled her eyes. "You cannot live your whole life avoiding risk. Sometimes you have to just go for what you want." The conversation stayed with Violet all week. Maria was right, she knew. She was almost 28 years old and she had spent most of her 20s playing it safe, avoiding risk, staying in her comfortable bubble. Maybe it was time to be brave. She was working up the courage to say something to Lucas when everything changed on a random Thursday afternoon. Violet was at the nursery, helping a customer load bags of soil into their car, when she heard her name called excitedly. She turned to see her friend Beth hurrying over, phone in hand. "Violet. Oh my God, I cannot believe you have been holding out on us," Beth said, slightly out of breath. "Since when are you friends with Lucas Everett?" Violet felt confused. "Since he moved in next door about 6 weeks ago. What are you talking about?" Beth's eyes went wide. "Wait, you really do not know?" "Violet, Lucas Everett is the Lucas Everett, the founder and CEO of Everett Consulting Group. He is worth like $300 million. It has been all over the business news that he moved to the city to personally oversee the opening of their new regional headquarters." The bags of soil suddenly felt very heavy in Violet's hands. She set them down carefully in the customer's trunk, moving on autopilot while her brain tried to process what Beth just said. "That cannot be right," she said slowly. "He lives in a normal house. He wears regular clothes. He is learning to garden because he kills plants." Beth showed her phone screen to Violet, and there was Lucas in a sharp suit at what looked like a business conference, the caption identifying him as Lucas Everett, CEO. There were several articles about his company, about his net worth, about the expansion into their city. Violet felt her stomach drop. Why had he not told her? They had spent nearly 2 months getting to know each other, having intimate conversations about their lives and dreams, and he had let her think he was just some regular guy with a vague consulting job. She finished her shift in a daze, her mind spinning. By the time she got home, she had cycled through shock, confusion, and was landing solidly on hurt. She parked in her driveway and saw Lucas sitting on his front porch, laptop open like usual. He waved when he saw her, that warm smile on his face that had become so familiar. Violet did not wave back. She walked straight to his porch instead of going inside like she normally would. "Hey," Lucas said, setting his laptop aside and standing up. His smile faded when he saw her expression. "What is wrong, Lucas Everett?" Violet said, crossing her arms. "Founder and CEO of Everett Consulting Group, worth $300 million. Any of that ringing a bell?" Lucas went very still. "Violet, I can explain. You lied to me," she said, hating how her voice shook slightly. "For 2 months, you let me think you were just a regular person. I told you things, personal things, and you could not even be honest about who you were." "I did not lie," Lucas said carefully. "I just did not correct your assumptions." "That is the same thing," Violet shot back. "Why? Why would you not just tell me the truth?" Lucas ran a hand through his hair, looking more frustrated than she had ever seen him. "Because every time I tell people who I am, everything changes. They either want something from me or they treat me differently. And when I met you, you just treated me like a person. Like Lucas, not Lucas Everett, the CEO. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" "So you thought lying by omission was better?" Violet asked. "You did not think I deserved to know the truth?" "I was going to tell you," Lucas said, taking a step toward her. "I swear I was. But the longer I waited, the harder it got, and I liked what we had. I did not want it to change." "Well, it has changed now," Violet said, blinking back tears she refused to let fall. "I need some space, Lucas. I need to think." She turned and walked back to her house before he could respond, managing to hold herself together until she got inside. Then she leaned against her closed door and let herself cry, angry at him for lying but also angry at herself for caring so much. The next few days were miserable. Lucas tried to talk to her several times, knocking on her door and sending texts that she did not answer. She avoided him as much as possible, leaving for work early and coming home late. The one time they accidentally crossed paths at their mailboxes, the hurt look on his face almost broke her resolve. "Please, Violet," he said quietly. "Just let me explain properly." "I do not know what there is to explain," she said, not looking at him. "You did not trust me enough to be honest." "That says everything." She went inside before he could respond, but his words haunted her. Maria and Beth both told her she was being too harsh, that he had explained why he kept it secret, but Violet could not shake the feeling of betrayal. How was she supposed to trust anything between them when it had been built on him hiding such a fundamental part of his life? A week after their confrontation, Violet came home from work to find an envelope taped to her door. Inside was a handwritten letter on nice stationery. "Violet," it began in Lucas's distinctive handwriting. "I am writing this because you will not let me say it in person, and I need you to understand. You are right that I should have told you the truth sooner. I was wrong to let it go on as long as I did, but I need you to understand why. My entire adult life, people have wanted to be close to me because of my money, my connections, what I could do for them. Friendships, relationships, business deals, it all came with an agenda. When I moved here, I wanted a fresh start. I wanted to be someone different, even if just in my personal life. And then I met you." Violet sat down on her couch, her hands shaking slightly as she kept reading. "You were so real, so genuine. You cared about rescuing plants and teaching me about gardening and making sure I actually ate vegetables instead of just ordering steaks every night. You did not want anything from me except my company. Do you know how amazing that felt? For the first time in years, I felt like someone actually saw me, not my bank account or my position. I should have told you the truth sooner. I know that. But I was terrified that everything would change the moment I did, and I was not ready to lose what we had. I am sorry I hurt you. That was never my intention. You deserve honesty, and I should have given you that from the start. I understand if you cannot forgive me, but I need you to know that every moment we spent together was real. My feelings for you are real. The person I was with you, that is who I really am, not the CEO in the suit. That was always the real me. I miss you. I miss talking to you, laughing with you, learning from you. I miss my best friend. If you can find it in yourself to forgive me, I would really like the chance to start over with complete honesty this time. If you cannot, I understand. But I had to try. Lucas. Violet read the letter 3 times, feeling her anger slowly deflate into something more complicated. She was still hurt, but she could understand his reasoning, even if she did not fully agree with his choice. And if she was being completely honest with herself, she missed him too. The past week had been lonely in a way her life had not been lonely before Lucas moved in. She had gotten used to having him around, to sharing meals and conversations and comfortable silences. She thought about it for 2 more days, weighing her hurt against her feelings for him, trying to decide if trust once broken could be rebuilt. Finally, on Saturday morning, she walked over to his house and knocked on the door before she could talk herself out of it. Lucas answered quickly, looking hopeful and nervous in a way that made her heart ache. He was wearing an old t-shirt and sweatpants, and his hair was messy like he had just woken up even though it was almost 10. "Hi," Violet said quietly. "Hi," Lucas echoed, not moving from the doorway like he was afraid she might disappear. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Yes," he said immediately, stepping back to let her in. "Of course. Please." His living room was as nice as she remembered, all that expensive furniture that she now understood was probably just normal for him. She sat on the leather couch and Lucas sat in the armchair, maintaining distance like he was not sure if he was allowed to be closer. "I read your letter," Violet began, and Lucas leaned forward, his whole attention focused on her. "I understand why you did not tell me. I still think you should have said something sooner, but I understand the reasoning." "I should have," Lucas agreed immediately. "There is no excuse for waiting as long as I did. You deserve to know the truth." Violet nodded, appreciating that he was not trying to justify it further. "I missed you too," she admitted. "This week has been awful." Something in Lucas's expression softened. "It really has. If we are going to try to rebuild trust, I need complete honesty from here on," Violet said firmly. "About everything. No more omissions, no more letting me make assumptions." "Can you do that?" "Yes," Lucas said without hesitation. "I can do that, I will do that. What do you want to know?" Violet had spent the last 2 days making a mental list. "Start with the basics. What exactly do you do?" Lucas took a breath and began talking. He told her about starting his consulting firm in his mid-20s with a business partner, about how they had grown it into one of the most successful corporate consulting groups in the country. He explained that he mostly dealt with the business side now, less hands-on consulting and more overseeing operations, managing the expansion into new markets. He had moved to the city to personally oversee opening their new regional office, because he wanted a change of scenery and a chance to be more involved again. "Why buy a house in a regular neighborhood?" Violet asked. "I mean, no offense to our street, but I would have thought someone with your money would go for something more upscale." Lucas smiled slightly. "That is exactly why I chose this neighborhood. I grew up middle class. My parents were both teachers. The money is still pretty new to me, relatively speaking, and I wanted to live somewhere that felt normal. Somewhere I could just be a regular neighbor." "Except you are not a regular neighbor," Violet pointed out. "No," Lucas agreed. "But I wanted to be. Does that make sense?" It did, actually. Violet nodded slowly. What about your family? You mentioned your mom teaching you to cook, but you never talk about them. They are still in Vermont, where I grew up, Lucas said. My dad passed away 3 years ago, heart attack. My mom is still there, still teaching actually. She refuses to retire. I have a younger sister, Lily, who is a veterinarian. She is married with 2 kids. They think I work too much. Do you? Violet asked. Lucas considered the question seriously. I did. Before I moved here, work was pretty much my entire life, but I am trying to change that. Part of why I wanted to oversee the new office personally was to force myself to slow down, be more present. They talked for hours, Lucas answering every question she asked with patient honesty. He told her about the pressure of running a major company, about the loneliness of not knowing if people liked him for himself or for what he could do for them. He talked about past relationships that had fallen apart when it became clear the women were more interested in his lifestyle than in him. Is that why you never asked me on an actual date? Violet asked, finally voicing something that had been bothering her. I could not tell if you saw me as just a friend or something more. Lucas looked at her intensely. Definitely something more. But I was afraid that making a move would change things between us, and I was not ready to risk that. I have never felt as comfortable with anyone as I feel with you. Violet felt warmth spread through her chest. I was afraid to say anything too. I thought maybe you were just being friendly. I am not that friendly to people, Lucas said with a slight smile. I do not generally spend all my free time teaching random neighbors about my life and learning to garden. So what now? Violet asked softly. Lucas hesitated, then moved from the armchair to sit beside her on the couch, close but not touching. Now I would really like to take you on a proper date if you are willing, with complete honesty about who I am and what my life is like. What does a date look like for Lucas Everett, CEO? Violet asked, half teasing. Whatever you want it to look like, Lucas said seriously. I can do fancy restaurants and shows if you want that, but honestly, I would be just as happy ordering pizza and watching movies on your couch. I just want to spend time with you. Violet felt herself smile for the first time in over a week. Pizza and movies sounds perfect. The relief on Lucas's face was almost comical. Yeah, she confirmed. But Lucas, if you keep anything else major from me, I will not be so forgiving. Understood, he said solemnly. Complete honesty from now on. I promise. They ordered pizza that night and watched 2 movies, sitting close together on Violet's couch. Lucas kept his arm along the back of the sofa, not quite touching her but close enough that she could feel his warmth. By the end of the second movie, Violet had dozed off against his shoulder, and she woke to find him gently shaking her awake. Sorry, she mumbled. I have been working a lot of extra hours. You work too hard, Lucas said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face in a gesture so tender it made her breath catch. Says the CEO, she countered, but there was no heat in it. We are both guilty then, he said with a slight smile. I should let you get to bed. He stood reluctantly, and Violet walked him to the door. They stood there for a moment, neither quite wanting to say good night. Lucas, Violet said quietly. Yeah, she went up on her toes and kissed his cheek, letting her lips linger for just a moment. Thank you for being honest with me tonight. When she pulled back, Lucas was looking at her with an expression that made her stomach flip. Anytime, he managed. I mean always, I will always be honest with you. After he left, Violet leaned against her door and smiled. They still had things to work through, trust to rebuild, but it felt like they were finding their way back to each other, and maybe forward into something more. The next few weeks were a study in getting to know each other all over again, but with all cards on the table this time. Lucas showed Violet the office building his company was renovating downtown, letting her see that part of his world. It was strange seeing him in that environment, in expensive suits and commanding respect from everyone around him, but it helped her understand the full picture of who he was. "It suits you," she told him as they had lunch in his enormous corner office. "The leadership role, you are good at it." Lucas looked pleased. "I do love the work, building something, helping companies succeed. It is satisfying, but it is not everything." He came to the nursery too, wanting to see her in her element. Violet showed him around, introducing him to Maria and her other co-workers, demonstrating how to properly pot plants and explaining the care requirements for different species. Lucas asked questions and seemed genuinely interested, and Violet felt proud of the work she did in a way she had not in a long time. "You light up when you talk about plants," Lucas observed as they walked through the greenhouse. "You should think seriously about that landscape design business you mentioned." "It is a nice dream," Violet said with a shrug. "But starting a business takes capital I do not have, and the market is pretty saturated." "What if you had the capital?" Lucas asked carefully. Violet stopped walking and looked at him. "I am not taking money from you, Lucas. That is not what I am suggesting," he said quickly. "I am talking about a business loan, a real one with a real interest rate and a formal contract. My company has a small business development fund. We provide loans and consultation to promising new businesses. You would have to put together a real business plan and go through the actual application process, but I think you could do it." Violet wanted to dismiss the idea immediately, but something stopped her. "You really think so?" "I know so," Lucas said confidently. "You are talented, knowledgeable, and you have great instincts. That is 80% of what makes a business succeed. The rest is just planning and execution. I would not get special treatment because we are together." Violet asked, because they were together now, officially. Lucas had asked her properly on a real date the week before, to a nice restaurant where he held her hand across the table and kissed her goodnight on her porch like a gentleman. "You would get the same terms as anyone else," Lucas assured her. "Better, actually, because I would have to recuse myself from the approval process to avoid any conflict of interest. My business partner would handle it, but you should think about it." Violet did think about it, more than she expected to. The idea of actually pursuing her dream, of having her own landscape design business, was simultaneously exciting and terrifying. She started working on a business plan in her free time, researching what it would take, what she would need. Lucas offered advice when asked, but mostly let her work through it herself, which she appreciated. "I want to do this on my own merit," she told him one night as they cooked dinner together in his much nicer kitchen. "Not because I am dating the CEO." "And you will," Lucas assured her, stealing a bite of the vegetables she was cutting. "I have complete faith in you." 3 months into their relationship, Violet felt like she had always known Lucas. He had seamlessly become part of her life and she of his. She had met his mother and sister over video calls, both of whom seemed genuinely delighted that Lucas had found someone. His mother had particularly approved of the fact that Violet got him to eat more vegetables. "She likes you more than me," Lucas had joked after the call. "I like your family," Violet said honestly. "Your sister is funny." "She is a menace," Lucas said fondly. "But yes, she is funny. She wants to meet you in person. Maybe we could visit Vermont next month." The casual way he included her in his future plans made Violet's heart feel full. "I would like that." They were building something real. She could feel it. Lucas was attentive and thoughtful, remembering small details she mentioned and surprising her with little gestures that showed he was paying attention. He brought her coffee on mornings when she had to work early, exactly how she liked it. He helped her rescue a neglected tree from the nursery that was too big for her to transport alone, spending an entire Saturday helping her plant it in her backyard. When she had a rough day at work, he would order food from her favorite Thai place and just let her vent. Violet tried to do the same for him, learning to read when he was stressed about work and needed either distraction or a listening ear depending on the day. She taught him more about plants and gardening until his yard actually looked genuinely nice. She made sure he took breaks from his laptop and actually relaxed sometimes. They fit together in a way that felt natural and right. "I am in love with you," Lucas told her one night, 4 months into their relationship. They were lying on a blanket in his backyard, looking at stars. "I know it might be too soon to say that, but I do not want to keep it to myself anymore." Violet turned her head to look at him, her heart pounding. "It is not too soon. I love you too." Lucas rolled toward her, propping himself up on one elbow to look down at her face. "Yeah, she confirmed, reaching up to touch his cheek. "I think I have loved you for a while now." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. "I have never felt this way about anyone," he admitted quietly. "You have completely changed my life." "You changed mine too," Violet whispered back. "In all the best ways." 6 months in, Violet submitted her business plan to Everett Consulting Group's Small Business Development Fund. True to his word, Lucas recused himself entirely from the process, and his business partner James handled her application. She was terrified the entire time, convinced they would see right through her, and realize she had no idea what she was doing. When James called her in for a meeting, she nearly threw up from nerves. Lucas offered to come with her for moral support, but she declined, needing to do this herself. She dressed professionally, rehearsed her answers to potential questions, and walked into the downtown office building trying to project confidence she did not entirely feel. James turned out to be a friendly man in his 40s with an encouraging smile. He went through her business plan with her, asking detailed questions about her projections, her target market, her competitive advantage. Violet answered as best she could, drawing on all her research and knowledge of the industry. "This is really solid work," James said when they were finished. "You clearly know your field and you have realistic expectations about growth and challenges. I am approving your loan application." Violet felt tears spring to her eyes. Really, James confirmed, sliding the paperwork across the desk. "Welcome to the program, Miss Walsh. I think you are going to do great things." She called Lucas the moment she left the building, practically shouting into the phone. "I got it. James approved the loan." "That is amazing," Lucas said, and she could hear the genuine pride in his voice. "I knew you would. We should celebrate. Let me take you somewhere nice tonight." Lucas took her to the fanciest restaurant in the city, where the menu did not have prices and the wine list was thicker than a novel. Violet wore the nicest dress she owned and still felt underdressed, but Lucas looked at her like she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," Violet echoed, clinking her glass against his. Over dinner, she told him all her plans, the timeline for getting everything set up, the marketing strategy she had developed. Lucas listened and offered suggestions when asked, but mostly just let her talk, clearly delighted to see her so excited. "I could not have done this without you," Violet said as they were finishing dessert. "Not just the loan, but believing I could do it in the first place. You gave me confidence." "You always had it in you," Lucas said seriously. "I just helped you see it." "You are going to be incredible at this, Violet. I have no doubts." Starting the business was hard work, harder than Violet had anticipated even with all her planning. She spent every spare moment getting everything set up, obtaining licenses, creating a website, reaching out to potential clients. Lucas helped where he could, offering business advice and lending his office manager to help with the administrative setup. Her first client was a young couple wanting to redesign their backyard, and Violet was so nervous she almost backed out. But the project went well, better than well actually, and the couple was thrilled with the results. They referred her to their neighbors who hired her for their front yard. Slowly, word started to spread. 3 months after launching, Violet had more clients than she could handle alone. She hired 2 part-time assistants from the nursery, both young and eager to learn. The business was not making her rich, not by any stretch, but it was growing steadily, and she was doing work she genuinely loved. "I am so proud of you," Lucas told her one night as she collapsed onto his couch after a long day. "You have built something really special." "I am pretty proud of me too," Violet admitted with a tired smile. "It is exhausting but so worth it." Lucas pulled her against his side, and she curled into him gratefully. This had become her favorite place, tucked against him while they talked about their days. He told her about a difficult client he was dealing with, and she told him about the challenging landscaping project she had just taken on. Their lives had woven together seamlessly. They had been together almost a year when Lucas asked her to move in with him. They were having breakfast in her kitchen, which had become their weekend routine when he brought it up. "You are here most of the time anyway," he pointed out reasonably. "Or I am at your place. We are basically living together already, just inefficiently." Violet had been thinking the same thing but had been nervous to bring it up. "What about my house, though? I cannot afford to just let it sit empty." "You could rent it out," Lucas suggested, "or keep it as an office for your business once you outgrow working from home." "But Violet, I want you with me, officially. I love you and I want us to build a life together." Put like that, there was really only one answer. "Okay," Violet said, feeling a flutter of excitement. "Let's do it." Moving in together felt like the natural next step. Violet brought her favorite furniture and her abundance of plants, which Lucas welcomed enthusiastically. They combined their lives, learning each other's habits and quirks in new ways. Lucas was a morning person who liked to exercise before work. Violet preferred to sleep in when possible but would wake up early to make him coffee and breakfast. He left dishes in the sink sometimes, and she had a habit of leaving books all over the house. They learned to navigate the small compromises that came with sharing space. "I love coming home to you," Lucas told her one night, pulling her into a hug the moment he walked through the door after a long day at the office. "I love being here," Violet said honestly, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne. This house had started to feel like home in a way her own place never quite had. Life fell into a comfortable rhythm. Violet's business continued to grow, and she was getting a reputation for creative, sustainable landscape design. Lucas's company opened 2 more regional offices, which meant more travel for him. But he always called her every night when he was away and came home with small gifts that showed he was thinking of her. They visited his family in Vermont for a long weekend, and Violet fell in love with the small town where Lucas grew up. His mother was warm and welcoming, his sister hilarious and slightly overwhelming in the best way. The kids adored Violet, particularly when she taught them how to plant flowers in their grandmother's garden. "You fit right in," Lucas said as they drove back to the city. "My mom already loves you more than me." "That is not true," Violet laughed, but she was touched by how easily his family had accepted her. "When are you going to let me meet your family?" Lucas asked, and Violet winced slightly. Her relationship with her parents was complicated. They lived across the country, and she saw them maybe once a year. They had never understood her choice to study horticulture instead of something more prestigious, and they tended to make her feel small and unsuccessful whenever they talked. She had been putting off introducing them to Lucas, not wanting their judgment to taint what she had with him. Soon, she promised and meant it. They are just difficult sometimes. I can handle difficult, Lucas assured her, reaching over to squeeze her hand. I deal with difficult clients all the time. My parents are not clients, Violet said with a slight smile, but I appreciate the confidence. When she finally did arrange for Lucas to meet them over video call, it went about as well as she expected. Her mother spent the entire call asking Lucas pointed questions about his business and his financial prospects, while her father mostly just grunted responses. Lucas handled it with grace, answering questions politely while keeping his arm around Violet's shoulders in quiet support. Well, that was something, Lucas said carefully after they ended the call. They are not great, Violet admitted, feeling embarrassed. I am sorry. You do not need to apologize for your parents, Lucas said firmly. And for what it is worth, I think you turned out amazing despite them, not because of them. Violet felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you for saying that. I mean it, Lucas said, pulling her close. You are incredible, Violet, I hope you know that. 18 months into their relationship, Lucas started acting strangely. He was distracted and secretive, taking calls in other rooms and being vague about plans. Violet tried not to jump to conclusions, reminding herself that he had promised complete honesty, but a small part of her worried that something was wrong. Her concerns came to a head one Saturday when Lucas told her he had a surprise and to dress nicely. Violet put on a dress and heels, trying to guess where they were going. Lucas was in a suit, which he rarely wore on weekends, and he seemed nervous. Where are we going? Violet asked as he drove them out of the city. You will see, Lucas said, but his hand was tight on hers. They ended up at a beautiful botanical garden about an hour outside the city, one Violet had mentioned wanting to visit, but had never made it to. Lucas led her through the entrance and down winding paths lined with flowers and trees, until they reached a secluded garden area with a small pond and bench. This is beautiful, Violet said, looking around in wonder. Then she turned back to Lucas and found him down on one knee, a small velvet box in his hands. Violet Walsh, Lucas began, and his voice was shaking slightly. You walked into my life when I was not looking for anyone, and you completely changed everything. You saw me, the real me, before you knew anything about my money or my company. You believed in me as a person, and you taught me how to be better. You make me laugh, you challenge me, you inspire me every single day. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love someone. Will you marry me? He opened the box to reveal a stunning but not ostentatious ring, a single diamond on a simple band. It was perfect, classic, and beautiful without being showy. Yes, Violet said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, absolutely yes. Lucas stood and slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then pulled her into a kiss that felt like coming home. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Violet saw that Lucas had tears on his cheeks too. I love you so much, she said, cupping his face in her hands. You are my best friend, my partner, my everything. You are mine too, Lucas said, resting his forehead against hers. Forever, Violet, I want forever with you. They stayed in the garden for hours, talking about the future they would build together. Lucas admitted he had been planning the proposal for months, wanting to find the perfect location and the perfect ring. He had talked to his mother and sister about it, and even called Violet's parents to ask for their blessing, though he had not waited for it before proposing. What did they say? Violet asked curiously. Your father was surprised but gave his approval, Lucas said diplomatically. Your mother wanted to know if we would have an expensive wedding. Violet rolled her eyes. Of course she did. What kind of wedding do you want? Lucas asked seriously. Because I will give you whatever you want. Big, small, destination, traditional, your choice. Violet thought about it. Something in between, not huge but big enough for family and close friends, maybe outdoors, somewhere beautiful. I can work with that, Lucas said, kissing her forehead. We will plan whatever makes you happy. The engagement period was a whirlwind. Lucas's mother and sister were thrilled, immediately embracing Violet as family. Maria and Beth threw her an engagement party at the nursery, decorating with flowers and making speeches about how they had known all along that Violet and Lucas were meant to be. James, Lucas's business partner, joked that Lucas had never been happier or easier to work with. They planned a wedding for the following summer, giving themselves time to do it right. Violet threw herself into planning while also managing her growing business. She had hired 2 more full-time employees and was considering renting actual office space. Lucas encouraged her every step of the way, celebrating her successes and supporting her through the inevitable challenges. "You have built something amazing," he told her one night as they reviewed her quarterly financials together. "I am so impressed by you." "I learned from the best," Violet said, squeezing his hand across the table. "You did this yourself," Lucas insisted. "I just provided some starting capital. Everything else is your hard work and talent." As their wedding day approached, Violet felt overwhelming gratitude for how her life had changed. 2 years ago, she had been living alone, working at the nursery with vague dreams of something more. Now she had a thriving business, an amazing partner, and a future full of possibilities. "Nervous?" Lucas asked the night before their wedding. Tradition dictated they should sleep apart, but they were breaking that rule like they had broken so many others in favor of what felt right for them. "Not even a little," Violet said honestly, curled against his side in their bed. "I have never been more sure of anything." "Me either," Lucas said, pressing a kiss to her hair. "I cannot wait to marry you tomorrow." The wedding was everything Violet had dreamed of and more. They held it at a beautiful garden venue outside the city, with flowers everywhere and an outdoor ceremony under a flower-covered arch. Violet wore a simple but elegant dress, and Lucas cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. They wrote their own vows, speaking from the heart about the journey that had brought them together. Violet promised to always be honest with him, to support his dreams while chasing her own, to be his partner in all things. Lucas promised to never take her for granted, to celebrate her successes, to build a life with her based on love and trust. "I was lost before I met you," Lucas said, his voice thick with emotion. "And then you were just there, this incredible woman who taught me about plants and made me dinner and saw who I really was underneath everything else. You gave me a home, not just a house. You gave me a future I actually want to wake up to every day." "I love you, Violet Walsh, soon to be Violet Everett if you are still planning to take my name." "I am," Violet said through happy tears. "And I love you too. You came into my life when I was not looking for anyone either, and you changed everything. You believed in me when I did not believe in myself. You gave me the courage to go after my dreams. You are my best friend, my love, my home. I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life with you." When the officiant pronounced them married and Lucas kissed her, Violet felt complete in a way she never had before. This was what love was supposed to feel like, she realized. Safe and exciting all at once, comfortable and challenging, a partnership between equals who brought out the best in each other. The reception was joyful and intimate, filled with laughter and dancing and heartfelt toasts. Lucas's sister gave a speech about how Lucas had been married to his work for years, and how grateful she was that Violet had taught him there was more to life than boardrooms and profit margins. Maria gave a speech about watching Violet come alive over the past 2 years, about how love and belief in herself had transformed her from the quiet nursery worker into a confident business owner, and now a bride practically glowing with happiness. To Violet and Lucas, James said in his toast, who prove that the best things in life happen when you least expect them. May your love continue to grow like one of Violet's rescue plants, getting stronger and more beautiful with the right care and attention. As Violet danced with her new husband under string lights while their friends and family celebrated around them, she thought about how different her life was from what she had imagined. She had not been looking for a millionaire or a CEO. She had just been looking to live her life, and then Lucas had moved in next door and changed everything. "What are you thinking about?" Lucas asked softly, pulling her closer. "How lucky I am," Violet said honestly. "How grateful I am that you moved in next door." "I am the lucky one," Lucas countered. "You could have stayed mad at me when you found out the truth. You could have decided I was not worth the trouble." "Never," Violet said firmly. "You are worth everything, Lucas. You always have been." They honeymooned in Costa Rica. 2 weeks of beaches and rainforests and adventure. Lucas had wanted to take her somewhere exotic, and Violet had chosen Costa Rica for its incredible biodiversity. They hiked through cloud forests, spotted sloths and toucans, and spent lazy afternoons on pristine beaches. "We should do this more," Lucas said one afternoon as they lounged in hammocks overlooking the ocean. "Travel, see the world. We both work too much." "Says the CEO," Violet teased, but she agreed. "But yes, we should. Maybe make it an annual thing." "At least annual," Lucas agreed. "I spent too many years letting work consume everything. I do not want to do that anymore. I want to actually live life with you." They returned home tanned and relaxed, ready to start their life as a married couple. Violet moved the last of her things from her rental house into their home, officially making it theirs together. Her business continued to thrive, and Lucas surprised her for their first anniversary as a married couple by helping her purchase a small commercial space for her company. "It is not a gift," he insisted when she protested. "It is an investment. Your business has been profitable for over a year now." "This is smart expansion, though I will admit I might have helped negotiate a better price on the property." Violet threw her arms around him. "Thank you for believing in me, for supporting my dreams." "Always," Lucas promised. "That is what partners do." 2 years into their marriage, Violet found out she was pregnant. They had been talking about starting a family but had not actively been trying yet, so the positive test was a surprise. She told Lucas over dinner, sliding the test across the table to him while her heart pounded. Lucas stared at it for a long moment, then looked up at her with wonder in his eyes. "Really, really," Violet confirmed, laughing at his expression. "We are going to be parents." Lucas came around the table and pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "I love you so much. I cannot believe this is happening." "Believe it," Violet said, feeling happy tears start. "We are having a baby." The pregnancy was hard but worth it. Lucas was attentive to the point of being slightly overbearing, trying to wrap her in bubble wrap and handle everything himself. Violet had to remind him multiple times that she was pregnant, not fragile, and could still run her business and live her life. "I just want to take care of you," Lucas said, looking sheepish after she called him out for trying to hire someone to take over all her physical work. "I know, and I love you for it," Violet said gently. "But I need to still be me, okay? I will ask for help when I need it, I promise." Their daughter Emma was born on a sunny spring morning, tiny and perfect, and somehow both of them at once. Lucas cried when he held her for the first time, this successful CEO reduced to tears by an 8-pound baby. "She is so small," he whispered in awe. "How is she so perfect? We made her," Violet said, exhausted but happier than she had ever been. We made this perfect little person. Becoming parents changed them both, but in ways that brought them even closer together. Lucas cut back on his work travel, determined to be present for every milestone. Violet scaled back her hours too, hiring a manager to handle day-to-day operations so she could focus on design, work, and motherhood. They figured it out together, stumbling through sleepless nights and diaper changes, and the overwhelming love that came with this tiny human they had created. "I never knew I could be this happy," Lucas told Violet one night when Emma was 6 months old. They were both exhausted. Emma, finally asleep after a difficult bedtime, collapsed together on the couch. "Me either," Violet agreed, resting her head on his shoulder. "It is hard but so worth it." "You are an amazing mother," Lucas said, kissing her temple. "I love watching you with her. You are so patient and loving." "You are a pretty incredible father yourself," Violet said, thinking of how Lucas would come home from work and immediately take Emma, giving Violet a break and cherishing that time with their daughter. When Emma was 2, they found out another baby was on the way. This time it was planned and they were both thrilled. Their son Noah was born in winter, a calm baby where Emma had been fussy, completing their family. "2," Lucas said, holding Noah while Emma toddled around their living room. "We have 2 kids. How did that happen?" "I believe there was a technical process involved," Violet teased, settling next to him on the couch. "Smart aleck," Lucas said, but he was smiling. "I love our life, Violet. I love our family. Thank you for giving this to me." "Thank you for giving it to me," Violet said seriously. "I never imagined I could have all this. A successful business, a loving husband, beautiful children. You made it all possible." "We made it possible," Lucas corrected. "Together." 5 years after their wedding, 10 years after Lucas first knocked on her door with apology bagels, Violet stood in their backyard watching Lucas play with Emma and Noah. Her landscape design business was thriving, with a full staff and more clients than she could handle. Lucas had stepped back from day-to-day operations at his company, taking on more of an advisory role so he could have more time with family. They had built a life together that was messy and chaotic and absolutely perfect. "What are you thinking about?" Lucas asked, coming over to her while the kids played on their swing set. He wrapped his arms around her from behind and Violet leaned back against him. "About how everything worked out," Violet said contentedly. "About how lucky we got." "It was not luck," Lucas said, pressing a kiss to her neck. "It was you being brave enough to give me a second chance. It was both of us choosing each other every day." "That too," Violet agreed, turning in his arms to face him. "I love you, Lucas Everett, more now than the day I married you." "I love you too, Violet Everett," Lucas said, cupping her face in his hands. "Forever, remember." "Forever," Violet confirmed, stretching up to kiss him. "You and me always." Emma called for them then, wanting Lucas to push her on the swing, and they broke apart with a laugh. This was their life now, beautiful in its ordinariness, special because they had built it together. From neighbors to friends to lovers to partners to parents, they had navigated every transition hand in hand. As Violet watched her husband push their daughter while their son laughed from the sandbox, she thought about that morning 10 years ago when a moving truck had woken her up too early. She had been so annoyed about her new neighbor, never imagining that the man moving in next door would become her entire world. But that was the thing about love, she had learned. It showed up when you were not looking for it, in forms you did not expect, and changed your life in ways you could never have planned. Lucas had started as her neighbor, become her friend, grown into her love, and ended up as her forever. And she would not change a single moment of that journey. "Mom, come play with us," Emma shouted, and Violet smiled. "Coming, sweetheart," she called back, walking toward her family, toward the life she and Lucas had built from one chance meeting and a bag of apology bagels, toward forever.